Hello everybody, Sorlian here, and today we are looking at addition and subtraction of directed numbers. And at the end of this video, you should be able to do that. You should be able to add and subtract positive and negative numbers. So there are some rules attached to the addition and subtraction of directed numbers. I'm not really a big fan of the rules, but the rules are there to guide you. But with enough practice of adding and subtracting negative and positive numbers, you should formulate your own rule in your mind of how to approach these questions. And also you can use a number line to guide you. So let's look at the rules and then we'll head into some examples. So the rules for adding directed number says, if the signs are the same, add the values and keep the sign. That's basically saying if you have 5 plus 5, that would give you 10. That is common sense. Or if you have negative 5 plus negative 5, you add and you put back the sign. So negative 5 plus negative 5 would give you 5 and 5 is 10. And you put back the sign. And the next one says, if the signs are different, subtract the smaller absolute value from the larger one and keep the sign of the larger number. This is basically saying you find a difference between the number, you subtract the smaller number from the larger number, and then you put back the sign of the larger number. So what this is saying, if you have negative 10 plus 3, the signs are different. In this case, we have a negative and a positive. So what this is saying, we subtract 10 subtract 3 would give you 7, and we put back the sign of the larger number, in this case, which is negative. So when the signs are different, you subtract and you put back the sign of the larger number. Like for example, how we have negative 10 plus 3. For the negative 10, what should be going on in your mind? Picture you have 10 red circles, and on the other side, you have 3 blue circles. So the blue circles represent the positive 3, and the 10 red circles represent the negative 10. So what you want to do, imagine every time a red and a blue pairs up, it cancels out. So the 3 on this side and the 10 on this side. So one will pair up with the other, that will cancel out. The other one will pair up with the other, that will cancel out. And the last one will pair up with the other one from the red side, and that will cancel out. And all you're left with now is 7 red circles, and that represents the negative 7. So in your mind, when you're doing these questions, you want to picture pairing out and canceling out and so on in your mind. Other than following these rules, that is what you want to visualize when you work these questions. Because sometimes in your exam, you may forget the rule and you may have to resort to reasoning your way out. So you want to use your calculator until you get there. Anyway, so let's move on to subtraction. And after we're done with subtraction, the rules for subtraction, we look at multiple examples until we get it. So the rules for subtracting directed numbers say, if the signs are the same, subtract and keep the sign in front of the larger number. So if the signs are the same, we subtract and we keep the sign of the larger number. So now let's look at the rules when we talk about subtracting directed numbers. So this one says, add and keep the sign of the larger number. So if we have an example, negative 5, subtract 2. What this rule is saying, we add the 5 and the 2, which will give you 7, and you put back the sign of the larger number, which would be negative 7. And if you have another example, negative 10 minus 7, we add and we put back the sign of the large number. So this will be 10 and 7 is 17, and we put back the negative sign. And that is how we do when we subtract in directed numbers. So now let's look at some examples in which some other things would come up as we work. So the first one says, let's say we have negative 10 plus 3. So we know for this case, we have a negative and we added 3. So that means in our mind, we should be canceling out, so we will be left with a negative 7 because we subtract and we put back the sign of the larger number. The signs are different, so we subtract and we put the sign of the large number when we're adding. So number 2 says 5 subtract 15. So we have 5 and we're subtracting 15 from it. So what will happen here, this will become a negative 10 because you have 5 things and you're subtracting 15 from it. From the 5, you're taking out 15, so 5 are already gone, so you're left with 0, and now you have to subtract the remaining 10 from the 0. So you keep going into the negative, so this will be a negative 10. And for number 3, we have negative 17 plus 22. So negative 17 plus 22. So the signs are different and we're adding. So what we do, we subtract and we put back the sign in front of the larger number. So 22 subtract 17. That would give you 5. And we put back the sign that is in front of the larger number, which is plus. So we know for plus, we don't need to put in a sign. So this remains a plus 5. And for number 4, so this example, we have negative 20 subtract 17. So we know for this one, we have to add and then we put back the sign in front of the larger number. So 20 plus 17 will give you 37, and we put back the negative sign, so negative 37. So now let's look at some exercises now. So the first question says negative 8 plus 4. So you want to take a pause and try to work it out. So negative 8 plus 4, that would give me a negative 4. We subtract and we put back the sign of the large number. Another way persons may think about it, they do some switching around. So we can switch it around and we can have 4 subtract 8, and that could give you a better picture. So the second one says 6 subtract negative 2. So we have 6 subtract negative 2. So one thing that should happen here, when you have two signs together, you always want to cancel out and put one sign. Whenever you see two signs together, 6 subtract negative 2, you want to cancel out these two signs and put one sign. So a negative and a negative, that would cancel out and give you a plus. So this is as if you have 6 plus 2, and that would give you 8. So 6 plus 2 would give you 8. So 6 plus 2 is the same as 6 minus negative 2, because the two negatives will cancel out and give you a plus. And this rule will only work when you have the two signs together like this without anything in between them. You see how you have this negative and there's a bracket in between them? The two signs will cancel out. It cannot work if you had something like negative 6 minus 2. No, those two signs cannot cancel out because, the 6 is separating them. But given the fact that we had 6 subtract negative 2, the two negatives will cancel out and turn into a plus. And this will tie into multiplication and so on of positive, non-negative numbers. That rule in which a negative and a negative will give you a positive. But this will only work once again if the two signs are together like this. So the other example says negative 5 plus 9. So negative 5 plus 9, the signs are different. We're adding, so that means we subtract and we put back the sign of the larger number. So 9 subtract 5 would give you 4, and you put back the sign of the larger number, which is plus. So this would be plus 4. So you have another one again, 10 subtract negative 7. So once again, the two signs are together. So the two negatives will cancel out and give you a plus. So 10 plus 7 will give you 17. So let's carry on to the other set of exercises. So we have negative 15 plus negative 8 plus 7. So once again, from the time you see you have two signs together, make it into one sign. So we have these two signs together. So the plus and the minus, that would cancel out and of course give you a minus. So negative 15 subtract 8, that would give us a negative 23. And then we add 7 to that, and that would give us the two sign. We have two different signs we're adding. So we subtract and we put back the sign of the large number. So 23 subtract 7 would give me 16. And I put back the negative in front. So negative 16 is the answer. So let's move on to the next one, which says 20 subtract negative 10. So we have the two negatives together again. So this will of course cancel out and give you a plus. So this is as if you have 20 plus 10 will give me 30. And once again, we have two signs together here again. So the positive and the negative will cancel out and give me a negative. So 20 plus 10 minus 5. That will give me a positive 25. And the last set of examples, negative 12 plus 8 minus negative 6. So we have negative 12 plus 18. Here adding, two signs are different. So we subtract and put back the sign of the larger number. So 18 subtract 12 will give me 6. Then I put back the sign of the larger number, which is plus. So we know that that is there. And we have 6 now, we'll subtract negative 6. So we have the two negatives together, and that would cancel out and give me a plus. So it's 6 plus 6 will give me 12, a positive 12. And last but not least, 25 plus negative 13. So we have the positive and the negative together. So that would cancel out and give you a negative. So 25 minus 13, that would give me 12, minus 9, that would give me 3. So the important thing we want to get from this video, when you have two signs together and you're adding and subtracting, when you have two signs together without anything in between them, you cancel out those two signs to get one sign. And that would make it easier to work out and easier to interpret. I remember when we are adding directed numbers and the signs are different, we subtract and we take the sign of the larger number. When you're subtracting, you add and you take the sign of the larger number. And that is all you need to do. Sometimes, or most times, you will come across situations in which you have signs together, like most of the examples in the latter part of this video. So you want to cancel out those two signs and make one sign and then work from there. So the important thing you want to also develop is the image in your head when you're adding and subtracting these numbers. And the only way you can develop this image in your head is by practicing over and over and over and over and over until you understand. Just like how we know to add 2 plus 3 will give us 5, you should be able to add -3 plus 6, and you know that will give you 4. You should be able to do that mentally without thinking of the rule and thinking of the number line. So practice, practice, and practice for this concept. This is probably the most important concept in algebra and in extension mathematics in general. So you must understand this before you fully understand everything else that there is in mathematics. So practice, practice, and practice on this concept, and you're on your way to becoming a very good math student. So now as you can understand directed numbers, you can understand anything in mathematics. So with that, I'll see you in the next video.